You've heard it 100 times. Just wait until your child is older and they'll see through the toxic co-parent. Let me be really honest with you. If you're co-parenting with a narcissistic or high conflict ex, just wait it out is not a plan. It is a gamble. And the cost of that gamble isn't just a rough few years. It can quietly destroy your child's emotional future. Because what happens in this dynamic isn't only conflict, it's conditioning. It's your child learning over and over to doubt their reality, override their gut, and carry adult emotional weight they were never meant to carry. The secret isn't waiting it out or proving the abuse. It's building a child who can trust themselves. And I need you to feel the relief in that, because it means that your child can be protected, even if the other parent never changes. If you want help doing this in a way that fits your child's age and your co-parent's patterns, book a strategy session with me. We'll map the cycle, identify the moments where you keep getting blindsided, and build a practical plan you can use immediately so you're not improvising under pressure. If you're new here, hi, I'm Dr. Naaila. I'm a doctor of child development, and I'm also a bonus parent, which means I don't just understand this dynamic professionally. I've watched the emotional harm up close. And with the right toolbox, my partner and I have been able to nurture an emotionally resilient child, one who knows what they feel, not just what they're told they should feel. And that's why I'm so serious about what I call the secret protection plan. It's not about changing the other parent. It's about building your child's emotional intelligence and inner compass so they're less vulnerable to guilt, emotional whiplash, and manipulation over time. Let's start building that protection plan, starting with the first skill your child needs, their inner compass. And that starts with something most people skip, helping your child tell the difference between what they're sensing and the story that they're being handed. So step one is turning on their inner compass. This is the emotional ID, where they learn to identify signals versus stories. Let's slow it down because this is where everything changes. In high conflict homes, kids are constantly given stories. Stories about who's good, who's bad, who's safe, who's dangerous, who's the victim, who's the problem. And the child's nervous system learns a terrifying lesson. Whatever I feel doesn't matter as much as what I'm supposed to believe. So the first protection skill is teaching your child to separate signals from stories. Signals are what the body and emotions are saying. Stories are the meanings we attach to them. Signals sound like, my stomach hurts, my chest feels tight, I feel shaky, I feel scared, I feel guilty, I feel confused. Stories sound like, I'm a bad kid. If I tell the truth, I'll lose them. I'm not allowed to love both of you. It's my job to fix this. I'm in trouble if we're feeling this. Here's the magic. Signals are always valid data. Stories might be true, or they might be someone else's narrative living in your child's head. So in your home, you become a signals first house. And I want you to hear this clearly. This is not therapy language. This is nervous system language. You can keep it so simple. With little kids, it might be, is it a tight tummy feeling? Is it a hot face feeling? Is it a shaky body feeling? Is it a rain cloud feeling or a volcano feeling? With older kids, you might say things like, where do you feel that? Is that a feeling or a thought about a feeling? What did your body notice when that was said? Now let's talk about the hardest moment. Your child says something like, Dad said you don't love me, or Mom said that you're trying to take me away. Dad said that you're selfish. Mom said you're the reason this family is broken. Your nervous system goes straight into defense mode. Of course it does. But if you go straight into proving or defending, your child learns my feelings are a debate. So instead, you anchor to signals first. You say, wow, hearing that could feel really heavy. Where did you feel it in your body when you heard that? Are you feeling scared, torn, confused? Let's pause on that. You're not agreeing with the accusation. You're agreeing with your child's internal experience. And that's what makes your home safe. Then, only then, you can add something neutral and stabilizing, like You never have to carry grown-up feelings in your body. You're allowed to have your own feelings here. You can have a big feeling and I love you. This is subtle, but it's how you build the inner compass. Because the child starts learning, my body tells the truth about what I'm experiencing. And that is exactly what manipulation tries to shut down. I work with a lot of parents who tell me transitions are the hardest part for them. And I distinctly remember this one parent who shared that their child would come home, shut down, straight to their room, one-word answers, no eye contact. So I asked the parent to stop leading with questions like, how are you? Or what happened? And instead switch to a signals-first approach. The parent started saying, what's your body doing right now? Does your tummy feel loose or tight? Does your chest feel heavy or light? A couple weeks later, the child finally whispered, my tummy hurts. And instead of treating it like a stomach issue, the parent stayed curious, calm, and present. Slowly, the child realized that tummy hurt was anxiety and pressure from the transition, something he couldn't explain with words yet. And once he could name that signal, he started opening up instead of shutting down. By the way, if you're listening to this and thinking, I love this, but I freeze when my child says something loaded, or I don't know how to respond without trash talking the other parent, or I need scripts for my specific situation, that's exactly what we do in a strategy session. We take your real life moments, the handoffs, the accusations, the loyalty binds, the shutdown, and we assess if my repeatable response plan is the right support for you. So book a strategy session with me and let's figure this out. You don't have to keep guessing. Okay, let's go on to step 2. This is where we build self-trust, strengthening discernment without making the child choose sides. This step is where your child becomes less vulnerable to the guilt and emotional whiplash, because narcissistic systems don't just distort reality, they distort self-trust. They teach kids, if you feel something I don't like, you're wrong. Or if you feel something that threatens my story, you're disloyal. So your child learns to override themselves. They learn to shapeshift. They learn to say whatever gets them out of trouble. And then the stable parent panics and thinks, my kid is lying. No, your kid is not lying. They are surviving. So we strengthen discernment in a very specific way. We normalize mixed feelings because mixed feelings are the antidote to the loyalty binds. And then you teach the kid version of the difference between guilt and truth. Because guilt in a child's body often shows up as a worry feeling. A worry feeling says, uh-oh, I'm in trouble, I'm bad, I did something wrong. A true feeling says something feels off or unfair or not right for me. The worry feeling is usually loud and swirly. The true feeling is usually quiet and steadier. So you can ask gentle questions like, is this a worry feeling or a true feeling? Is your body feeling tight and twisty or more calm and steady? Do you feel scared, sad, mad, or mixed up? Let's pause. What would it feel like for your child to realize, just because I feel guilty doesn't mean I did something wrong? That one insight protects them for life, because guilt is a favorite tool in the narcissistic dynamic. If you can get someone to feel guilty, you can get them to comply. So you teach your child guilt is a feeling, not a command. Then you reinforce self-trust through small choices, not big confrontations, small choices. If your child says, I don't want to talk about it, you say, okay, thank you for telling me. I'm here for you if you want to later. That teaches them my no is allowed. If your child says, I promised I wouldn't tell you, you say, that sounds like a heavy promise. You don't have to break promises to be safe. But you also never have to carry scary things alone. Then you teach a simple distinction. Surprises are fun. Secrets that make your stomach hurt are not for kids to hold. That's discernment. That's self-trust. And it doesn't require your child to villainize anyone. I worked with a dad who told me that whenever their child came back to dad's house, the child got very performative about mom's house. It was constant praise, constant defending, almost like they were trying to prove everything is amazing over there. even when the parent knew there was some really concerning patterns happening. And you could feel the loyalty bind in the room. So instead of challenging the details, because that's what makes the kids clamp down, we kept working on safety and self-trust. Signals first. Mixed feelings are allowed. Worry feelings versus true feelings. Little by little, the child started saying things like, "Mom gives me too many kisses." At first, it sounded small, like kisses are good, right? But when the dad stayed with the child's body truth, it became clear that it didn't feel affectionate to the child. It felt overwhelming, like too much, like they couldn't breathe. Not mom is bad, not an accusation, just the child finally being able to name, "This doesn't feel good in my body." And once the child realized that they were allowed to tell the truth about their experience in the safe home without protecting anyone's feelings, they started opening up more instead of performing what they thought they should be saying. Now let's talk about step 3, boundaries, because this is where a lot of well-meaning advice can accidentally put kids at risk. A lot of parents hear boundaries and they picture teaching their child to say something like, "Stop talking to me like that," or "I don't want to talk about this," or "No." And in healthy relationships, it's a beautiful skill to have. But in a narcissistic or high conflict dynamic, a child using direct boundary language can backfire really bad. It can trigger punishment. It can trigger shame. It can trigger more pressure. So I don't want you sending your child back to the other home with lines that they're supposed to deliver. That's not the goal here. The goal is to build a child who knows on the inside what is and is not their job. Because when a child understands their role, they stop getting recruited so easily. So here's what boundaries look like in your home. Boundaries are not a sentence that your child says to the other parent. Boundaries are a felt sense of, "That's not mine to carry." Let me slow down. Kids in these dynamics get handed adult jobs. They get pulled into being the messenger, the comforter, the secret keeper, the referee, the little spouse. And you can't always stop what happens over there. But you can absolutely build contrast in your home. You can build a nervous system that recognizes adults handle adult feelings. Kids get to be kids. I'm allowed to have my own experience. So you teach role clarity out loud in simple language. You say things like, "It's not your job to fix grown-up feelings. It's not your job to pick sides. It's not your job to carry messages. It's your job to be a kid. Eat, sleep, play, learn." And I want you to notice how that lands. It's not confrontational. It's not about the other parent being bad. It's about giving your child an identity that protects them. Then you practice internal boundaries through permission. And this is huge. In your home, your child gets to have a no that is respected. Your child gets to have privacy that is respected. Your child gets to have a feeling that is respected without being cross-examined. Because when they feel that contrast consistently, they start to internalize, "My needs don't make me unsafe." So it can sound like, "You don't have to answer every question right now. You can take your time. You're allowed to say, 'I'm not ready to talk.' You're allowed to keep some thoughts just for you." Now, this is an important detail. Those last lines are for your home, not as a script to go over there. Because what we're building is not a child who stands up to a narcissist. We're building a child who doesn't lose themselves to a narcissist. Let's pause on that. What would it change for your child if they had one home where they never had to audition for love? One home where they didn't have to manage adult emotions? That home becomes the template, and that template is the boundary, whether the child ever says a boundary sentence out loud or not. And here's one more piece that matters. You model boundaries in the safe home gently. You show your child that adults can be firm without being scary. So if your child comes home dysregulated and starts snapping at you, you can say, "I'm here and I'm listening. And I'm not okay being spoken to like that. We can take a breath and try again." That teaches boundaries can exist with connection. And that's how your child learns the contrast without being put in the line of fire at the other house. I remember one parent I worked with who told me something that really stuck with me. Their child would come home and want to share these little everyday things: what happened at school, a funny moment, a problem with a friend. And the parent said gently, you can always ask to call me, because that was part of their court agreement, that the child could have access to contact the other parent. And the child looked at them and basically said, I can't, I'll get in trouble. Let's pause on that, because this is exactly what I mean when I say boundaries with a narcissistic or high conflict parent can backfire, even when the boundary is completely reasonable. A child asking for a phone call could lead to consequences like anger, the cold shoulder, guilt tripping, or subtle punishment energy that says, how could you do this to me? And it ramps up the loyalty pressure. So instead of pushing the child, you're allowed to call me, it's in the court order, you should do it, the parent did something really wise. They said, okay, you get to decide what feels safest for you in that home. They didn't make the child responsible for enforcing adult agreements. They didn't turn the child into the messenger. They respected the child's nervous system. And at the same time, they were teaching a deep internal boundary. You don't have to do something just because it's technically allowed, if it makes you feel unsafe. That's self-trust. That's role clarity. That's a safe parent saying, I'm not going to use you as a tool to manage the situation. And for that child, it reduced pressure immediately, because they weren't being asked to risk backlash just to prove a point. And step 4 is repair, showing your child what healthy conflict resolution actually feels like. This is where long-term resilience really gets built. Because in a narcissistic system, repair usually means one of 3 things: pretend it didn't happen, blame the child, or demand an apology to soothe the adult. So the child learns love means swallowing your own feelings. And that pattern follows them into friendships, into dating, into work. So in your home, you model repair, especially when you're not perfect, because you won't be. You're going to get triggered. You're going to have moments where you sound sharp. You're going to have moments that you regret. Repair is what makes your home feel safe again. A clean repair sounds like, hey, I want to come back to earlier. I was really frustrated or angry or mad, and I raised my voice. That wasn't your fault. I'm sorry. Next time, I'm going to pause before I respond. Are you okay? Do you want a hug or space? This teaches your child emotions are allowed. Accountability does exist. Love comes back after conflict. Let me say that again. Love comes back. And if your child gets that lesson from you consistently, they become less vulnerable to manipulation everywhere else, because they stop chasing intensity as proof of love, and they start recognizing safety as love. Now, let's bring this into everyday life, because I don't want this to stay theoretical. Here's what I want you to picture. You're not having a big talk. You're stacking micro moments. 2 minutes in the car, 10 seconds at bedtime, 30-second check-ins after a handoff. Consistency beats intensity. So here's the rhythm. When your child is activated, you validate signals. That makes sense. I believe you. I'm here. When your child brings back a story that sounds planted or pressured, separate signals from the stories. Where did you feel that? What feeling is here? You don't have to solve it right now. And when your child feels torn, normalize the mixed feelings. 2 things can be true. You can love them and feel hurt. When your child feels pressured, reinforce internal boundaries and give the job back to the adult. You don't have to carry that. That's a grown-up problem, and the grown-ups will handle it. You're allowed to keep your thoughts private. You get to decide what feels safest for you. And when there's rupture in your home, you repair cleanly. That wasn't your fault. I'm sorry. I'll do it differently next time. That is the secret protection plan. It's not controlling the other parent. It's nurturing resilience in your child. And if you're thinking, but what if the other parent is doing so much damage that this wouldn't be enough? I hear you. Some situations do require legal protection and professional support. But here's what I want you to hold on to. A child with emotional intelligence has a flashlight inside the fog. Even if they can't change the environment, they can stay connected to themselves inside it. And that connection is what makes them harder to manipulate. It's what helps them come back to you. It's what protects their future relationships. If you want help applying this to your exact dynamic, your child's age, your co-parents' patterns, your most common landmines, book a strategy session with me. Because you don't have to keep guessing on what to say. You can have a plan. And your child can have an inner compass that lasts. Book a strategy session with me and we'll build this together.